Today, I'm in conversation with Nyasha Gwatidzo, a social entrepreneur. You are watching the UK series brought to you in partnership with the Nyaradzo Group. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work. Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor UK series brought to you by the Nyaradzo Group. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. If you enjoy this series, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work. Nyasha Gwatidzo, we are so grateful that you're not well, but you've managed to come and sit there. So we're absolutely grateful for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You've got an amazing story. Shall we start with the way you came into this country? You came in as a refugee.
But when I was secondary school, my parents were political refugees. They were very involved in the ZANU movement, Mugabe, very strong Mugabe supporters, and it wasn't safe for us to continue living in Zimbabwe. And so we came to this country when I was a child, and I went to...
What year was that, Nyasha?
75.
1975.
And went to school in Yorkshire, Sheffield and Bradford. And they went back to Zimbabwe during the independence in 1980. And I was doing my A-levels, and I was left and in UK, actually living with my chemistry teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing my Form 4 then.
Yeah.
And that's it. I never went back to Zimbabwe. My life happened, got married, had children. Now I'm grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Have you been home of late?
I go to Zimbabwe a lot,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because of my charity I set up.
Mm-hmm.
I co-founded with my mother about 25 years ago.
Is this the...
Wana Trust. Wana Trust.
Wana Trust, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does it feel like home?
It does. And I always used to have this debate with my late mother. Whenever I was in Zimbabwe, I'll say, "Oh, Mom, I want to go home." And she used to say, "You're home." I have this dilemma of where home is.
Is that dilemma settled?
It is settled in my mind. Zimbabwe is my home.
Zimbabwe is your home.
Yeah.
But you're a British citizen.
I'm a British citizen, yes.
But Zimbabwe is your home.
Yes.
So interesting tension, isn't it?
It's an interesting tension, and which one I always struggle with. But I think if I don't know that being born in Zimbabwe, if you're born in Africa, there's something about Africa which just helps you to the core to remain committed to that plight.
Does the UK feel like home?
It does feel like home in some, but many times I'm reminded that this is not my home.
What reminds you that it's not your home?
My race, my color, my challenges I find in my work, in my personal lives. There's sort of daily reminders where you find yourself, you're the only Black woman on the table. You know what I mean? There isn't that many people who look like you around you, so you're reminded all the time.
Are there any painful reminders of that this is not home that you've encountered that you can recall?
Oh, some of the challenges have been extremely, I feel, unfair and challenging. And the way to deal with it is how do you let these challenges get in the way for me, get in the way of progress. And I always say, and I'm not patronizing anyone, that I do it despite being Black, being a woman, being an African, trying to do business or make an impact in UK. You just do it despite, not because you are.
Is it tough?
Very tough. It's a very tough. And the toughest thing is the no's, and the walls get built around you. And I'm always saying, how do I turn this no into a yes? And it's about continuing to go back and say, I know you said no, but what do I need to do or say for you to say yes? And if they give you, or come back to us a year later, and they're always quite shocked, a year later, I put it in my diary, I go back, you told me to come back. Oh my God, we thought you were never going to come back, you remembered.
That sounds like resilience.
That's
is that what it needs to live in this country?
Yeah, you need to be extremely resilient and extremely determined, and being very clear why you're doing whatever. The motivation, I'm always saying the motivation, I've got to be really clear. It's got to be bigger than you. Because if it's not big enough, you can easily give up. What's
your motivation?
To make a difference to children's lives.
And unpack that as much as possible. To make a difference, what does that mean?
To really make an impact. For me, I'm really passionate about children. And all my life, I've worked with disadvantaged children. I don't know whether they looked at my profile. I work with the most disadvantaged children in this country who are in the care system. They don't really have a voice. They don't have a voting right.
Are they black? Are they white? Or it's
it doesn't
all
matter.
races?
Children in the care system who find themselves, for whatever reason, they can't live with their best parents, and some of them are disabled. Some of them have got learning difficulties. Some of them are suffering from mental health difficulty, or their background is mental health. So I work with the most, and for me, it's trying to make, even if it's an hour, of making a difference with that child, to give them hope and to give them opportunities.
What kind of opportunities do you find are open for those kind of kids?
Talking with employers to give them a chance. Simple things like a 2-week work placement. We've had to educate employers, say, their child in care, it's just a label. They're still a child. Why don't you give them a work placement? Why don't you give them experience they're interested in, whatever it is, for them to just come to your workplace for 2 weeks? Simple things like if they're interested in something and really pursuing and arguing and advocating with the local authority. Look, this child is really talented in this. They might not be academic, but they're quite talented in this. Why don't we pay the fees? Some of these hobbies are quite expensive. Like golf, music, all those things. They just exclude these children because the entry fee to actually have those lessons is so expensive. It excludes many people, not just children in care. So we're saying, just because they're in care, why should they not have those opportunities?
You say in one of in part of your profile that you've dedicated your life to caring for the vulnerable and empowering women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Well, as you sit here, what would be the score like? Do you feel you've made an impact? What do you say to yourself? Talk to me about that self-analysis, that self-evaluation.
I think I've made an impact, but I always feel that it's a drop in the ocean. The problem is huge, especially in Africa. The level of poverty, and this is not poverty, access to financial stuff, but access to resources. It's just incredible. I've just come back from Zimbabwe for 3 months now, and with the drought in Southern Africa, you can actually smell it in the air, the deprivation. So I'm always questioning myself as a person. Am I doing enough? And am I making...
And what is enough?
And what is enough was always the question.
Yeah.
And I know also that I can be overwhelmed and I can completely dismiss it. Nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Completely divorce myself. I don't see it. I don't smell it. So that's why I found most of, Tory people who go to Africa. The best thing for them is to go and stay in 7-star hotels. They don't see it. And when you start talking to them about this poverty in Africa, they say, what are you talking about? I didn't see it when I went there because I stayed in a 7-star hotel. So I think I was just brought up very sensitive to the environment I'm in, and how to engage with the environment you are. So I just think I'm too sensitive. I cannot say I haven't seen something I've seen. And I'm such a doer. That's my main thing. I'm really quite a doer. I focus on solution. This is the problem. What can I, the individual, do to make a difference to, even if it's just one child? And that's what keeps me going. Because if I think of the millions of children,
it can be daunting, isn't it?
It can disable me, and I don't do anything. I just go about my business, minding my own business, and not do anything. And a lot of people do. That's how they survive it. The best thing is to know it's not happening around them.
Because or to allow you to overwhelm you, isn't it?
Yes, it's overwhelming. It can be quite disabling. And so you do nothing. And then you think, oh, this is a problem. So you start thinking of other people.
It's the government.
It's a government problem. It's somebody else's problem. It's always someone else's problem. And once I see something, I'm always saying, what can I do with the little I have and the knowledge I have, because I've seen it, and what are my boundaries in terms of resources as well. I think for me, it's awareness. Once you're aware, it's so a lot of things can happen. And also, once you're networked with other people, you can tell them, this is what I saw.
Multiply effect of networks.
Yes, and you can. And in Africa, you help one person, the multiplier effect is 30 times, 20 to 30 are impacted.
Particularly women,
It's particularly women, because they'll feed their kids, they will feed the one next door and the one before that. And I remember years ago, I'll never forget that. My mom had a gardener. She had him for a long, long time. He actually came there when he was 17, started working for my mother. And then he got married in my mom's house, whatever else. And then when I went there were so many people who were staying there. And I said to my mom, coming and going. And he was the only one in his family who had a job. So he said, oh, this is the brother who came to pick up the school fees. So one person, one wage, which wasn't, I think it was $100.
Was supporting a whole trail.
It was, that's the impact of Africa, of helping one child.
Nyasha, you started off as a social worker.
Yes.
Talk to me to that place. Do you recall who were you working for?
I started my life quite differently. I was going to be an academic. I studied, my first degree was in chemistry. And it was my PhD tutor. I was doing my PhD at Imperial College, part-time, because I didn't get a scholarship to do it. So I had a day job, and I was working in a doctor's surgery. And when I was, doing my first year, I just used to talk to him. Oh, at the surgery, those young people who came when they were talking to me about this. And
you're talking to your mother?
My supervisor at Imperial College. And at the end of the year, we done our literacy. Saying, Nyasha, come. I'll never forget. I think there was the 8th of July. Said, come and we'll do a literacy research. After we finished this whole conversation, said, Nyasha, you've passed. You can go to the next stage of your PhD. You've done a good research. And it was all about pollution. I was looking at pollution, mining pollution in the Derbyshire areas as a chemist. I was going to become an academic. I was going to be professor of chemistry at Zimbabwe University. You know what I mean? I was born to be one of my parents were very ambitious for us. We were, the new leaders of Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And so he just said to me, Nyasha, every time I never knew he was listening to my story about the work I was doing with young people in the community at this doctor's surgery I was working. You really come alive when you start talking about children. And why don't you train to become a social worker? And I'm thinking, what's the matter with him? Am I not good at this chemistry? I could have taken offense.
Yeah.
And he gave me 3 numbers actually. One was Goldsmith College, which was doing social work and psychotherapy. You could do an MA in social work. And then another college, I can't remember what name, and another one which was training to become a therapist, a Pelham Institute. And from that day, I've never looked back. I called them. I got a place to train to become a psychotherapist.
Wow.
Never looked back. And he touched on something which you know what I mean? You get distracted from it's all part of experience.
Tell me,
I don't have any regrets.
who had encouraged you to do chemistry?
My teachers.
Your teachers.
And my parents.
But your PhD supervisor who touched right on the right spot.
Yeah, a soul subject, very something, which I was very interested in. And completely never looked back. So I trained to become a child and adult psychotherapist. And then I set up my first children's home, which was working with a small group of children who had emotional behavior difficulties.
Is it the place where you used 800 pounds to start
yes,
this thing?
I think
let's stop it there. Because from that 800 pounds, Nyasha, you have built a business now. That's got a turnover of 150 million.
Yes.
That's not small. Change that.
No.
When we come back, we're going to get to that place. Nyasha started with 800 pounds, and this was redundant money.
Yeah, from Camden.
And she has built a huge business. So don't go away. See you on the other side.
We'll lobby the government with other people who are outside London to say, why can't this be done by individual companies? The government changed the law.
Sending money from the UK to Zimbabwe? Look no further. Introducing Sawira Money, your gateway to seamless money transfers. You can collect at Sawira Money Transfer Agency offices at selected Nyaradzo branches. With Sawira, it's quick, easy, done.
You're watching the UK series brought to you in partnership with the Nyaradzo Group. I'm in conversation with Nyasha Gwatidzo, a social entrepreneur. So Nyasha, from your redundant money of 800 pounds, you have built a huge business around social entrepreneurship. Yeah. So talk to me about that first, where you put your $800, your first 800 pounds, sorry.
You won't believe what I did with that 800 pounds made redundant from Camden. And
did they fire you at Camden?
No, I was made redundant.
Okay.
The Camden was making a lot of people, thousands, I think 20,000 people were made redundant.
So they said, go home, here's 800 pounds.
Yes. I hadn't been there for long.
Okay.
I've been there for only 18 months. But during that time, I'd reduced my hours. I'd become part-time because I was doing this research on these children. So normally the last one in is first one to go.
Yes.
And also because I'd reduced my hours, my redundancy money was very little. So I decided, I'd already done my research already because I was working 2.5 days a week. That was before mobile phones. The other 2 days, you could make phone calls to do your research. There was no Google, you name. So I needed the 2 days to visit other children's home, to look at what other people were doing and what I would want to keep, what I wouldn't want to keep in my own home. It was just quite an interesting. I got a bit over the top. I actually visited 40 children's homes.
Oof.
And then I couldn't remember which home I told this bit. It was quite interesting. It's a bit like looking for a house. You can visit too many houses. You can't remember which one has got a chimney and which one doesn't have one. And anyway, so the 800, I said, what shall I use this $800 pounds for? And I decided I wanted to create a flyer, just a brochure about what it was I was setting up. You name, I didn't even have an address. So I just did this flyer. I gave it to someone who had a computer at the time. I mean, I didn't have a computer. And I hand drew the logo of this imber. It was just an African hat. There was logo. And hand did it. And I did my business plan on a piece of paper, handwritten, not typed. And so that's what I used. This woman said it was going to cost me £800 for these flyers.
Wow.
That was the end of my money.
Your money gone?
My money gone. So I didn't have any money whatsoever. So,
but it was a seed.
Yes, it was a seed. So I decided to advertise in the local paper that I'm looking to set up this home and it's gonna be in a community children's home, and I'm looking for 6-bedroomed house with a big garden for the children to play with, and it's gonna have children play there. And I had 54 landlords replying to phone calls, and they were phoning me. This is me with not even $1, £1. So I visited 24 of these houses, beautiful houses in South London. I didn't have a penny to rent them out. It was $2,500. I'll never forget the monthly rent and 2,500 deposit. So I needed 5,000 pounds to go through the door. So the last house I went to, I said, I've got to stop visiting these houses. I'm just wasting their time. I said, I went with this one. I don't know why. All the other 24, I never went with my flyer. I never went with my business plan, which I'd written on a piece of paper and photocopied. But this one, I went with my flyer. I went with my my business plan, and this man appears at the door, and I think it took us about 15 minutes for him to show me his house, lovely house, which was very near to my own house, around the corner. And so when he finished showing me, I was telling him what I wanted to do with this house, what my purpose, what was my motivation, I was really quite a massive hit a raw nerve within him. So at the end of it, he said, "Oh, Nyasha, remember this is 2,500. Whatever, I need 5,000 deposit. I'm quite keen on your projects you're doing." And I said, yes, but I don't have any money. I used my 800 redundancy money to print this flyer. So I gave him my flyer. I gave him my business plan. So he went, and I said, "Oh, I'm never going to hear from him again." Because the other people I never told. I just went and I told them what I wanted to do with the house. 3 days later, he phones me, this guy. And he said, "Oh, I've been talking." At the time, he said, "I'm going to talk to my my wife. And by the way," because I said, "Oh, you look quite familiar. I think I've seen you." He said, "Oh, no, I'm the local vicar for the Anglican Church near my house." And I said, "Oh, I've seen you. I think I remember seeing you around the area." And he said, "Oh, this is our family home, but we live in a vicarage by the church. So this is a private home. We rent it out to students." And there were 6 students at the time in that house. So anyway, he said, "I've spoken to my wife and we really like what you're doing." And I thought, "Oh, he's just being polite." You know what I mean?
He's going to tell me to go away.
Don't want to ever speak to you again. So he said, "We've thought about it. We're going to give you this property. We're going to do it up. We're going to decorate it all. We're going to get 6 beds, single beds for the children. We're going to get a washing machine. We're going to get 6 knives and forks, everything. And you don't pay us rent for 6 months."
Wow.
Not even one cent.
Wow.
And it was just unbelievable. And I kept on saying, "Are you sure?
Are you sure you want to do this?
You want to do this?" And I think I spoke to him. He picked up my purpose and my motivation, and he was able to do this.
So that was the birth of Banya Family Placement?
No, that was the birth of Imba.
Imba, okay.
Yeah, my therapeutic home. That was my first social enterprise. And never looked back. I opened on the 6th of July, I think it was 1992. Mm-hmm. By the end of July, the home was full, with 6 kids. And just never looked back. I went back to him. I said, "I can pay you, your rent." He said, "No, I promised you."
And then 1994, you launched Banya, am I right?
That's right.
That was your second one.
Yes. And that was born from Imba, because some of the children, we had quite difficult behavior. We've been offering them they're living with us 3-4 years. But at the end of the day, we were quite a small unit. We were still not a family. Mm-hmm. And some of the children were unaccompanied minors from Rwanda, Zaire. They didn't have anybody in this country. Mm. And as I told you, children who the care system, they're quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
So myself, when I was 18, I wasn't ready to leave home. and I didn't grow up with this background. So why would I expect someone with such background to be able to
on their
cope
own.
or to have, even if they are in their own flat, to have a point of call, to go back home or call an auntie or my mother, if I lost my keys. So that's when I said, what about this fostering? Because I'd been a foster carer for Westminster.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the plant of being a foster carer came in my whatever. And at that time, the government did not allow a private individual to set up a company which would foster. It was only done by big local authority and big charities like Barnardo's. So I was quite instrumental. Banya was the first fostering agency in London, and we lobbied the government with other people who were outside London to say, why can't this be done by individual companies? The government changed the law. 2008, we had our first fostering legislation which allowed individual companies to run fostering agencies.
But you had set up a trust with your mother, eh?
Yes, meanwhile.
Varna Trust.
Yes.
Talk to me about that relationship with your mother, particularly in relation to this trust.
Oh, it was my mother was my mentor, very instrumental person to my life. And she was always coming because we'd all grown up here. My mother, all her children at one point lived in England. And
how many of you?
There were 7 of us.
7 of you, okay.
Yeah, 3 sisters and 4 brothers. And she was a teacher before Zimbabwe independence. So was my father. And so education was really quite important to her. And herself, her situation being a girl and her father being quite advanced, in the 30s, to send her to school. And she felt such a privilege that her father thought beyond her gender to send her to school. So she said, Nyasha, I think every child in Zimbabwe, anywhere in the world, should at least have primary education. And there was a lot of AIDS and HIV orphans in the 90s, late 90s in Zimbabwe. And every time she said, Nyasha, Godson has died, they've left all their children. No, the grandmothers or the uncles or the auntie have got enough, they can't send them to school. We've got to do something. So we just used to do it informally. Then my accountant said, Nyasha, if you set up a formal charity, you can be tax advantage for you to do this, to donate from your company to this charity. So that's how
That's how you set up the trust.
Yeah, it was really to deal with children in Southern Africa who were dying, whose parents were dying of AIDS and HIV.
Which countries in Southern Africa are you operational at the moment?
At the moment, it's Zimbabwe and South Africa.
Zimbabwe and South Africa.
Yes. Yeah, okay. We look after children there.
Well, how big is your staff, Nyasha?
My staff? For the charity?
Yeah, for the charity.
Oh, it's very small. It's got a board of trustees, I think 7 in Zimbabwe, 7 in UK.
Okay.
2 members of staff. We now have got a therapeutic farm at the back of my farm here in Oxfordshire, border of Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. And we've got a member of staff with the farm manager.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many kids are you taking care of?
Oh, Lord, hundreds of children. Yes, we're taking out a lot of children. And at the farm here, we work with people with learning difficulties. Yeah, more than 100 people use the farm. It's a day center.
Just on the farm, 100 people. And in Africa, how many? Sorry, in Zimbabwe and South Africa?
More than 100 people, children. I'll say about, I think we're nearly 200 people.
Wow.
Children we look after at any given moment. And
so they come and go?
No. We look after them. Actually, we start from ECD. It wasn't there when ECD, we started. Yeah. It's now there. We start from there to university. Okay. We've even sent someone to come here to do an MA.
Oh, wow. You've since set up 9 social enterprises.
Yeah.
Talk to me about. You've got Kushanda, World Impact Capital. Just run through the key ones.
Oh, yeah, Kushanda is quite new, and if again this was born out of COVID. Funny enough, during COVID, because of death in my family, I never stopped traveling. I traveled everywhere during COVID, and I think I had 98 COVID tests
Wow.
Yeah, I think I made the world record. And so I went to a lot of I've been to, I think, 29 African countries. And one of the main things I found is unemployment. And Africa is producing something like 3 million jobs a year. And there's about 7 to 10 million young people coming on the job market. So we find a lot of young people drowning the north of Africa, trying to get to Europe. We find, I don't need to tell you about young Zimbabweans being killed in South Africa because they're looking for jobs and economic well-being. And the thing, and sometimes it's dressed as political problems. But for me, you think about politics when you're fed. It's sort of like
That's
really
interesting.
basic.
You think about politics when you're fed.
When you're fed. And I remember listening to a lecture recently of Ibrahim Moore. He was saying that, he was talking about...
Mo Ibrahim.
Yeah, Mo Ibrahim. And he was saying that he was being asked by journalists about the gender, the lesbian and gay issues in Africa, how it's dealt with governments. And he was saying, you think about those kind of things when you're fed, when you're really cannot see where the next plate of food is going to come through. And I thought it was quite interesting.
Those are not the kind of issues that you focus on.
Yes, there's different issues. So it's coming from a privilege for you to think about those things. And he wasn't saying that they're not important.
No.
But he was saying it's coming from a privileged place for you to think about things like that. So anyway, there was a lot of women who I met and young men who are fantastic digital marketeers. They're just really quite good at social media, but no work. So I said, why can't I? There's lots of people like me in Europe who are so busy. I don't have time to become a media expert and create Canva posts and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why don't I match? So I'm always thinking of creating win-win situation. The employer like myself get freed, and I concentrate on strategic stuff. I don't spend my time dealing with the admin or the social media. The person who's doing the social media for me in Ghana gets a job, and they've got an income. So that's how Kushanda came about.
I'm going to stop you there, just so that we take a break.
Yeah.
You arrived yesterday to be here. You live in Guernsey. You have built these enterprises. I just want us to go there. Particularly, I'm interested in the farm in Buckinghamshire. What you do, your organic farm. So we're going to go there.
Yes.
And so at home, don't go away. Join us on the other side.
My husband had a tragic accident in the house, and he broke his neck in 4 parts.
No,
so he was paralyzed from neck downwards.
Sending money from the UK to Zimbabwe? Look no further. Introducing Sawira Money, your gateway to seamless money transfers. You can collect at Sawira Money Transfer Agency offices at selected Nyaradzo branches. With Sawira, it's quick, easy, done.
You're watching the UK series brought to you in partnership with the Nyaradzo Group. I'm in conversation with Nyasha Gwatidzo, a social entrepreneur. I'm fascinated, Nyasha, by your therapeutic organic farm, where you're going to be going from here. To talk to me about what the setup there is like in relation to what you're doing.
Yeah, it really came about when I set up IMBA in London. I read a paper on Therapeutic working with people on elopement in Camden. And this woman had worked with war victims of Rwanda. So she was working with these 4 men, and she used to meet them in a room like this and say, or how was your torturers and kind of thing. And she wasn't making any progress. So she said to them, how would you want to use this time? And they said they were farmers. They would really like to have a piece of land. They can go and grow anything here in Campton. So she got the council to give a full allotment for the 4 of them. So she used to meet them there. They just used to talk about, during that hour, she used to meet them at the allotment.
Wow.
So she wrote a paper about it, how she found it, that it was very therapeutic for them. They came out of their shell. They were not as shy to just talk to her.
As they were working,
they were just talking to her about whatever came to their mind. And I thought that was very interesting because of my therapeutic background.
Yeah.
And so I had a Rwandan boy who was a boy soldier in my children's home, and another boy who was autistic, nonverbal. And they became quite disruptive. They could be quite disruptive in the home. So one day I just said, I'll take you to my allotment. I had an allotment in London, in South London. So it sort of planted a seed. And then when I bought this farm, I had 8 acres. So what am I going to do with them? So I thought it'd be quite good to do that with the local people who have got emotional and behavior problems as a day center. So people just come 9 to 5. So
they don't live there?
They don't live there.
Okay.
They don't live there. And that's how this was. I was mentored by another Bridewell, which is not very far from, but they only worked with adults. They didn't work with children.
Do they need anybody or do they need any supervision? Is it structured?
Yes, it's very structured.
What does it look like?
They've got a care plan, which is agreed with their carers or their parents, with the farm manager. So when they come, they know what they're doing, whether they're feeding the animals, whether they're digging the holes, or whatever needs to be done that day.
Do they get paid?
No, they don't get paid.
Okay.
But I do know another one, a similar, not therapeutic. They get paid for attending.
But with yours, they're simply there for therapeutic purposes.
The parents or themselves, they make a donation.
Okay, all right.
But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get, through social subscribing, that the local authority should pay for them to come. So we can make it more of a social enterprise rather than a charity. And then I contacted the Charities Commission and I said I wanted to set up another charity. And they said, oh no, you can have 2 charities. One is specialized in Zimbabwe or South Africa under the same body. So it's under the same One Trust.
How are these enterprises funded, Nyasha?
They start with me funding it, me donating to it. My business donates to them. Yeah. We have we've had grants. National Rotary, for example, has given us money. Recently, we got an award to build toilets in the outside, so that we used to hire a toilet. So we get different kinds of grants.
So you say your businesses fund them. Which are these businesses outside the social entrepreneurship? No. Okay, still within the same space. Okay. Yeah. So we are breaking them down. Kushanda, World Impact Capital. How far are you with that one?
Oh, this has been an ongoing issue. I've always this where we started this conversation about why I live in Guernsey.
Yes. Are you going to tell us why you live in Guernsey?
It's to do with this World Impact Capital.
Good.
My mother was not getting any younger, and she was finding it quite difficult. She was complaining every time she came to London. She said, "Oh, these trips changing. It was okay when it was direct flight." So I thought I would go and live in Zimbabwe and spend some of my time before my mother became too elderly to even enjoy me being in Zimbabwe. So I decided I was going to try and ring fence my businesses while I'm in Guernsey temporarily on my way
to Zimbabwe.
And then just as I found the house I now live in Guernsey, my husband had a tragic accident in the house, and he broke his neck in 4 parts. So he was paralyzed from neck downwards. So it was really jinxed.
Oh.
So I tried to go to Ghent by myself, and he would visit. He was in hospital for 9 months, and he never recovered any use of his limbs.
Is he still alive?
No, he died 4 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And then my mother died from nowhere. After my husband's accident, my mother went to hospital. She said she was feeling cold in June. Well, it killed quite a lot, that coldness in June 2017. It killed a lot of people in Southern Africa. She said she was feeling cold. My brother took her to hospital because she was throwing up. I said, well, how can you start throwing up from? And she was admitted. And 2 hours later, she died. Absolutely from nowhere. So that all.
So your trip to Guernsey, on your way to Zimbabwe, you never arrived, like you said.
I never arrived until today. Then my brother who died, then my other brother died. It's just been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. In the middle of this, what I was thinking was, what can I take to Africa from my experience in Europe? I didn't want to take charity, and I'm really moving away from the charity model because it creates dependency. And you're the mess of the donors. Yeah. If the donors think next week they want to deal with HIV, they will move away from your profit. It's their
agenda, not your agenda.
It's not your agenda. And it comes with their own rules and regulations of what they want. So I thought, what did I find the most difficult in my journey as a social entrepreneur in UK? And the most difficult thing I found to grow my business was access to finance. The bank world, financial world in UK doesn't understand the word social enterprise. They think, when I talk to them about what I do, they thought that should be done by charity or that should be done by local. And I said, no, I'm doing it. I'm not a charity. I'm not local authority. I'm not, you know what I mean? It's a debate I've had over the years, and I've never won it. And my first bank, which I opened a bank account, it told me that I can never be £1 overdrawn. £1. Until today, I'm running a multi-million pounds business. I do not have an overdraft facility for my business because of who I am. They don't understand my business model. They don't understand how I make money. So it's their loss, not mine. So I thought I would create a fund which will empower women in sub-Saharan Africa and create jobs. The main things I wanted was really creation of jobs, about really talking about that Africa has got to create jobs. Whatever the enterprise you're doing, you've got, and I'm not talking about 2 jobs for 2 people, 3 people, or the family business, whatever. I'm talking about thousands and millions of jobs. And we
so is this the World Impact Capital?
That's what it's about. Okay. Yes.
And you're going to fund it yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to fund it myself. I'm also going to look for funders.
Okay.
So I'm going to be on fundraising trip to get other funders. And so I'm looking for institutional investors, or high worth individuals to contribute to the fund. And also ultimately to start with 250 million, then build it up. So we have 4 phases of the fundraising. But the main challenge has been, again, I'm not a financier, I'm not a fund manager. I need to find people who are aligned, and also to actually find a woman. Because if it's going to be a women's fund, I really want the fund manager to be a woman. And I've really struggled with that for quite a long time. So at this moment in time, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the fund. I'm thinking that maybe it's better for me to co-fund something which already exists rather than
which
me.
Then brings you in partnership with other people.
Yeah, rather than trying to do it all by myself. And also, it's about, I was just saying today that I'm no longer 16 anymore. I've been talking about this fund actually since 2014. It's been on my mind for quite a long time. As I said, I've visited 29 African countries to meet with these women entrepreneurs and to look at what their challenges are. And
what seems to be their challenges?
The main challenges, some of them actually were doing very well. They thought they needed money, but they didn't need money. They needed support. They needed mentoring, someone to bounce off ideas quite a few of them, I thought they didn't need any money. They were doing quite well by themselves and making a huge impact and employing lots of people.
When do you think this project is going to be on its feet and up and away?
I really would like it to be next year, or I found a co-partner.
Well, I mean, supposing there's a co-partner who is watching you right now.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of a co-partner are you looking at? Would you want to give them the specs?
Yeah.
What kind of a co-partner are you looking for?
I'm looking for someone who's interested in Africa, interested in empowering women and creating jobs for young people in Africa.
Coming in as a donor?
Yes, as
a co-funder.
A co-funder. They can co-fund, I can co-fund.
And you're clear on what your agenda is?
Yes, I'm very clear.
Yeah.
I've got a pitch deck, I've got the whole lot.
Okay.
I've been working for a long time.
Do you ever think about purpose?
Oh, it's a big on motto. It's the driver. I've just written a book recently called Scaling for Good. And the whole thing starts with purpose. And my purpose is very, very clear. There are people who actually struggle with their purpose. For me, it's too big. My purpose is to eliminate equality and poverty in the world, and it's quite huge. It's quite big. But I'm always saying your purpose must be bigger than you. It mustn't. If it's your purpose doesn't frighten you a bit,
exactly,
then you need to go back and revisit.
Do another one.
Do another one.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to scare you a bit.
So you found your purpose.
Yes, I'm very
working
clear.
Away at
and
it.
I'm very lucky. Some people really struggle with this
in
their lives. They're all there throughout. They never find the purpose. And it's quite, for me, I think it's quite soul destroying not to have a purpose in life. To have a reason why you get up in the morning.
Exactly. Have you ever failed at all?
Oh, yes. There's been a lot of failures. There's been a lot of mistakes made along. And I don't know. I've seen them as opportunities for me to learn more. If I was scared of failing, I wouldn't get up in the morning because I could be easily run over by a bus.
What one failure would you be able to share with our viewers? One failure that really humbled you?
Oh, I think I'm humbled all the time when I can't help a child.
Wow.
I feel it's a personal failure.
Wow.
Especially now, I've just been to Zimbabwe. I had to choose between a list of 100 people to 18 children we're going to fund from September. And it's just terrible. How do you choose? Which one has got more need than the other?
Interesting. You already have, you just mentioned Mo Ibrahim. We had Mo Ibrahim on this show. And one thing that Mo Ibrahim said, which has stayed with me, is that it's actually easy to make money. It's easier to make money than to give money away.
Yeah.
Because how do you shorten that list from 100 people that need help to 18 people?
It's just awful. It really just, it's just such a humbling experience. And to keep, for me, I always say, I focus on the positive and not the one I'm helping. And to continue being in touch with them and see what another way I can help. And one of them recently, I spoke to the auntie and I said, could we go house? Could you pay? You know what I mean? It's just, and the auntie is saying, and it's not even an auntie, it's a neighbor who is aware of this child who needs to go to university. Just a neighbor. She's not even related to him.
So you've already, you said, you asked a big question. Both you and I raised the issue. Have I done enough?
Yes.
How much is enough?
How much is enough?
When you're done and you're able to look back, what would you want us to put on your grave? She was here. She did what? What would that look like?
I think I pioneered social enterprise in the mainstream business. I made a difference to children's lives. That's what
you'd want to remember.
I don't have a number in particular I want to be, but I made a difference to one child is good enough.
You've already mentioned books. We love books on this show. I'm sure you've been warned about books.
Yes.
We're going to go to books now, to our book-loving audience. And you walked the length of the River Thames.
I did, yeah, for my charity.
Crazy, isn't it?
Completely mad. Completely mad.
Who does that?
Oh dear. And I never walked before then. It's not something I genuinely had never walked. And I was so unwell leading up to that. And so I thought, let me just give myself a challenge to prove that I'm now well. Let me do this walk.
And you walked, and that walk resulted in a book.
Yeah, in a book.
Walking with Me Through 16 Inspirational Business and Life Tips.
Yes. Wow, yeah, that was interesting.
What books would you recommend? 3 books to our book-loving audience?
I would recommend my 2 books.
Okay.
They're good. And they're quite interesting, my books, about purpose. And the next one is talking about scaling your business. Because some people get stuck in a startup mode.
Yeah.
So getting to the next level. And there's a book, one of the books I've actually bought recently, a newer version of it, called Leadership Energy Levels. And it talks about how we perform as leaders at different levels. And it's level 1 is really the blame culture. It's everybody's fault. Level 7 is the top, which I have been thriving to achieve. It's about not making any judgment. And as human beings, we're so quick to make judgment. We make judgment when we meet somebody, what they're wearing, what they're not wearing. We make judgment all the time.
Have you arrived at not making judgments?
I think I'm working on it. I am quite, it really does take quite a lot for me to make a judgment.
Yeah.
And I keep my judgment to myself, and I don't force my views to other people. I'm very much into this valuing diversity. And I think it's to do with my experience. I have been, I think, all my adult life being judged because I'm Zimbabwean, I'm black. There's the minute I mention I'm from Zimbabwe, there's a whole heap of judgment which comes with it. So I haven't enjoyed it. So I don't want to do it to someone else. So they'll say you mustn't do something you don't want.
Yeah.
So I'm really thriving. And the other thing is that when I find myself judging, I'm aware of it. I say, Nyasha,
that's
you need
self-awareness.
Yes.
Self-awareness.
You're judging.
Nyasha, thank you so much. You and I could go on and on. You are a natural. I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much. Shall I shake your hand?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we can have this conversation forever.
Absolutely.
All night.
When are you off to Guernsey?
On Sunday.
On Sunday.
Yes.
So you're going to be on the farm just briefly?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Allow me now to tend to our viewers, Nyasha, who are all over the world, to say thank you for your support. Remember, we are a weekly show. We are out on YouTube every Monday at 7 a.m. Central African time. And we encourage you to subscribe, because when you subscribe, you get a notification every time we have a new episode so that you don't miss out. We have a website that you can go through to go and binge on our podcasts and our videos. And we love your comments, by the way. Please share with us what you think about the conversation that Nyasha and I have just had. Thank you so much. We value your support. Until next time, cheers to you all.